Hey, it's Kish,
And it's Roland here.
and we are here with a Burning Shadows set review. So this is our second set review, and it's of Burning Shadows, a very exciting set, and something that we'd like to discuss a little bit further. So, Roland, any thoughts you'd like to get out there right before we get into this?
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be an interesting set. Probably, well, I think we'll get to this later, but probably not as impactful as Guardians Rising, but there's definitely still some gems in the set. And it's also something we've got to analyse in terms of rotation, so not just what the new cards will do right now, but also once rotation hits, how some of the new cards will be, how they'll play in the format. So
Absolutely. So yeah, of course, rotation been announced a little while ago. Breakthrough on, which is pretty interesting. So anyway, let's just jump straight into this, and we can skip over Butterfree because bye healing, bye. It's pretty
no
terrible.
Forest of Giant Plants, but that it would have been good anyway. Yeah, post-rotation, of course. You could still play with Forest of Giant Plants now, but I would recommend you do not do that.
No, and only thing I'll say here is that it's disappointing Metapod does not have Harden.
Yeah, that's got to be a first. I mean, I haven't been keeping track, but surely they could have at least given it that.
I know.
No reason to play it. Vileplume, this is an interesting one. So I've heard people talking about this. You'd only really want to play it right now while the other Vileplume and Forest of Giant Plants are still in the format. Even then, I think the consensus is that it's just still not very good because you're getting out another stage 2, and this is why you're trying to set up the other Vileplume, which makes it harder to set up your other stage 2s because you can't play items yourself. And you don't want to prioritize this over the item lock because the item lock's generally going to be more oppressive. And basically, look, maybe it's a one-off in like Decidueye Vileplume just in case you play against like an all-basic deck, like something like Turbo Dark or even Volcanion, maybe.
Yep.
That actually could be like okay, but it's clunky and probably not worth a spot. The attack's bad, so because it has to be active, right? So
that's right.
Like you've got to use Downer Shock, which is okay under item lock, but the 3 energy is just terrible. So basically, I don't think this card's very good, and it could only ever see play right now. As soon as rotation happens, it's complete and utter garbage. Yeah. Even now, I don't think it's very good. What do you reckon?
No, I think it's terrible. Aside from all the other things that you've discussed, and it's just the fact that there's so many evolutions running around. It's the first time in years that evolutions have been so prevalent in the Pokemon trading card game with all the GXs and things. It's pretty much useless in a lot of matchups. Volcanion, yes, it'll be good in that matchup, but does it win you the match? Possibly, but probably not worth the slot anyway. Alright, let's move on. Tangler, Tangrowth, nope.
Yeah, this is not good. When was the last good Tangrowth we had? I'm just trying to think. It was one in Stormfront that was okay, but that was that was about 8 years ago, so that hasn't been particularly fertile grounds. Ledian, not really doing much. Comet Punch, okay, that's an attack. I swear there was a Ledian ages ago that had Swift and Comet Punch. Like those are the classic Ledian attacks. I don't know why I remember that, but anyway, this card's not good, so Heracross, though, actually, this could be used as sort of a wall, because the format right now doesn't really have any good walls, so for things like, I'm not saying necessarily you would put this card in, but things like Umbreon to switch into, or something like that. Yeah. The only card we have that's like this is Celebi, the promo card, so that when it gets knocked out, it has, the ability states that, flip a coin, if heads, your opponent doesn't take a prize for the knockout, and then you shuffle Celebi and all cards attached into your deck. This is very similar to that. If anything, it's actually probably slightly better because you don't shuffle it into your deck. So, and Guts works even if you've still got the 10 HP left, I believe. Yeah. Normally, these sort of effects only work when you have full HP. So think about like Focus Sash, for instance. Yeah. This is different in that, say you get heads on Guts, you can still use Heracross as a walls, and it could still survive even further. And you don't have to shuffle it into your deck like you do with Celebi, which can be a pain getting out again. So, I don't know. This could see players like in sort of hit and run decks. Not that those really exist right now, but there could be a really good hit and run card coming up, perhaps. Yeah. Maybe this could see a one-of in an Umbreon decks, possibly. The attack's not very good, so it's only going to be used as a wall, really, but it does that, I suppose.
Yeah, you summed it up pretty well there, I think. The only thing I'll say is Heracross is one of my favorite Pokemon, and
I love it as well.
The Neo Genesis first edition Heracross, which is almost exactly the same as this card.
Yeah, that's right. No, didn't it have was it three grass for 60, flip a coin of tails does nothing? Yeah. How's that for obscure knowledge?
So,
yeah.
Great memory there, Roland. So I'm happy to see Heracross is back after so many years. It was one of my favorite cards as a kid. I built a bad Heracross Venusaur deck and got trounced every single time. But happy it's back. But could see playing some hit and run decks. All right. Simisage.
Yeah, Simisage. This has never seen a good card ever.
Yeah, another classic Simi. Just terrible. Dewpider, Araquanid. Bad.
Yeah, those sort of attacks, they're not very good because it's so easy to switch out. So, I mean, obviously, preventing your opponent from attaching energy is a good effect, but you can never actually make it stick, so it's terrible.
No. There's a lot of switching cards like Guzma and things, which we'll get to later.
Yeah, and retreating, good old-fashioned retreating. It's just, not very good. The only thing to note is it's grass as opposed to water, so... so I'm guessing it's a grass-water Pokemon in the video games. Bug, water, I don't know. I don't know much about the BDC, so as you can probably tell. So, but here we go. Well, first really sort of standout card in Wimpod. No, seriously, Golisopod is very, very good. 1 energy for 120 damage potentially is fantastic. Really, that is very, very good. Potentially you can even do it on your first turn with Forest of Giant Plants if you go second. And obviously going first, you can just do that in your second turn. 120 damage for 1's fantastic, particularly because we have Lurantis promo, which obviously adds 20 damage to all your grass Pokemon's attacks. So, like, with 1 Lurantis and a Choice Band, you're already hitting for 170 damage, just for 1 energy. So that's very, very good. Yeah, the only caveat, obviously, being that it has to have been on the bench first, so the deck has to devote spots to, like, switching cards. So there are a few sort of cards that fit that bill, like Guzma, maybe Olympia, but probably Guzma's generally better. Acerola even, like, to pick up damage Golisopods as well. So you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone there. You're both healing and you're switching as well. Of course, because you're only using 1 energy. Things like Acerola, and you can even use Max Potion as well in terms of just being able to heal. 2 10 HP is really, really good. And if you can just take a few hits, when you're doing that much damage, you can basically win any matchup. But the other attacks are really good as well. Armor Press, it can be good. Just playing a few DCA means that even if you can't switch out, you can still use the other attacks. And the other attacks are really good on their own, just in and of themselves. So, and again, always think with these numbers, it's not just the intrinsic number itself. Think plus Choice Band, think plus Lurantis as well. So Armor Press, being able to have effectively 20 extra HP is actually really clutch. So when you're knocking out Pokemon that, when you're playing against a deck that doesn't actually have that much HP, the fact that Armor Press only does 100 isn't really relevant. Like, say you're playing against, I don't know, like...
Vikabula is a good example.
Yeah, like something that you can knock out anyway or something. And say against Vikabula, right, they can't really do 230 damage. So, it could be good in matchups where the 20 is relevant, basically. But the GX attack's also really good as well. So, I mean, speaking of walls, this is actually a really good hit and run attack. So, it does 150 damage, which is 30 more than First Impression does. So, in terms of hitting, big numbers like sort of 200 plus, this can do that. And also, you can potentially tank with something, maybe like Heracross, or even just sending out just some like basic, one prize. Attacker, and also it means that you don't need the clause of First Impression as well. So it's a pretty good GX attack, all things considered, and a really good card all up. Fire weakness is going to be interesting. Once Flareon rotates out of the format, that's a really good weakness to have. As it stands right now, it's a bit of a dodgy one because Flareon does allow a lot of decks the ability to knock this out in one hit.
And Golisopod could suffer a bit from Gardevoir's popularity, I think. Gardevoir, of course, we'll get to that in a minute, but that is probably the best card in this set. An extremely powerful fairy type. It's weak to metal, which means Metagross is a good play. So you could end up with this weird situation where you have fairy, metal, fire type with Volcanion, and because people are trying to counter Metagross, which is used to counter Gardevoir, so people play Volcanion, and then Golisopod ends up in the middle of that and ends up getting smacked by Volcanion. So it's going to be interesting to see how much play this card gets. But I think it's possibly one of those things where in the right meta, it can just absolutely destroy. As long as there's not too much fire running around, not too many things that can knock it out in one hit, it would absolutely wreck. So good card, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just have to be worried about getting caught in the crossfire with fire, like Metagross hate, for instance. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no pun intended. But but intrinsically a good card for sure.
Yeah. All right. So we go on to some fire types now.
Oh boy, yeah. Well, this definitely deserves discussion. That is an interesting GX attack. I don't know if we've had a Charizard that actually discards your opponent's deck at all in like the history of the game, and that's saying something. We've had about 1 billion Charizards in the history of the Pokemon TCG. They've really taken it in a new direction. Okay, the first 2 attacks are just classic Charizard, or Crimson Storm is just a classic Charizard attack. Totally unnecessary damage, discarding a ton of energy. It requires a ton of energy to attack. The first 2 attacks alone just realistically aren't going to get the job done. We do have that new supporter, which we'll get to, that allows you to search for 4 fire energy. So sort of like kind of Blacksmith, but different. But then, of course, it requires your turn to be ended. So it's not really a viable way to make a deck. So basically, it's not very good. I mean, you have burning energy, which means that you don't have to discard, but there's still no way of getting all the burning energy on in the first place. So, burning energy might even be rotating. Well, okay, even if it isn't, it's just still flawed and doesn't work. But so basically, it's not going to be used for the first 2 attacks. The only question is the GX attack good enough to fit into, say, Houndoom, Mill sort of decks? Is that something that, okay, it's clunky, but,
but if you do it, you win the game almost.
Yeah, 10 cards is just insane. Like, that is nuts. So, because I feel like those sort of deck art decks, they've really fallen out of favor in the format.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's probably not something that there isn't really explicitly one card that made them not good. I think just sort of the general sort of that'd be interesting to analyze, like why those decks have disappeared. Maybe it's because energy denial isn't as reliable. If I had to guess, I'd say it's because Trashalanche is just a one basic energy attack, which means that because really where these deck art decks get their leverage is with energy denial, right? It's not that Houndoom discarding 2 cards at the top of your deck every turn is actually that good. It's because you can also combine that with preventing your opponent from being able to attack by, Lysander and get things stuck up, or discarding energy and all that sort of stuff. And maybe in the format right now, that isn't good because of for all those things like Trashalanche being really efficient. But if ever those sort of decks come back into the format, maybe Charizard gets a mention as like a tech line. Of course, that is clunky, right? Obviously, we're not going to skirt around the fact that it's going to be pretty clunky being a stage 2. And also you've got to play double colours, which you might not otherwise play. But 10 cards is just, like, that is just nuts. Yeah. I can't stress that enough.
Of course, Charizard always going to be one for the collectors here. And
yes, absolutely. This card will be worth like a bunch of money, regardless of how terrible it is. Yeah, you can bet on that.
Yeah, so hold on to that one. All right, so Ho-Oh GX, another really interesting fire type. Roland, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, if you have any ideas, just fire away.
Yeah, all right. Well, it's got 3 reasonably. Oh well. The first attack isn't that great. 50 snipe for a fire and a double colorless is pretty poor overall, really. If you think about things like Ninetales, which can just do it for a double colorless, and 50 is not a whole lot of damage these days, so probably not a great attack. Phoenix Burn, heard people talk about this. It does 180 damage, and you can't use it on your next turn. 4 energy requirement with 3 fire, so you can power this up in 1 turn with Kiawe.
Kiawe, that's what it's called. Yeah.
So you can power this up on your first turn and hitting 180, 210 if you have a choice band on your second turn. So that's very strong. And you don't have to discard energy, so you do have the potential to stream this attack a couple of times.
Yeah,
so it could be interesting. And Eternal Flame GX, another classic Ho-Oh type ability. Come in, bringing things out of the discard. The old Ho-Oh EX used to bring itself out of the discard. This Ho-Oh GX allows you to put any 3 fire Pokemon, EX or GX, from your discard pile straight to your bench. So you can put stage 2s straight onto your bench. So Roland, Incineroar, question mark.
Okay, that brings us to an interesting discussion, right?
Yeah.
The problem here is that you're using your GX attack, which means that, say for Incineroar, one of the appealing things about Incineroar, and it might seem stupid because it's a 3 energy attack, but you'd be surprised how many times you can use it. Is this GX attack, right? It does 200 damage base plus burn, so you're effectively doing 220 damage. So that's without any damage modifiers. So once you use this attack, sure, you can get 3 Incineroars out, and that is very good because Incineroar can abuse Max Potion, and because it has the 1 energy attack, which is pretty good. Although we're going to be losing Skyfield, but say pre-rotation, that's good. But losing the GX attack, I think, is enough of a downer for the deck. that, like, okay, it's easy to get out a bunch of Incineroars, but they're not as powerful as they were. I suppose at that point, the deck would have to be almost solely based around abusing Max Potion. Like, you just, okay, the whole deck's designed to use Eternal Flame on turn 2, get out 3 Incineroars, play 4 Max Potion, and just abuse the heck out of whatever the attack's called. The Incineroar's first one, the one that does more damage for each fire Pokemon on your bench. Yeah. So I think also my issue is that Phoenix Burn and Eternal Flame, like, kind of, they're like two totally different things. Like, if you're focusing around using Kiawe to power this up and attack, which is fair enough, right? That's actually pretty powerful, especially on a 190 HP basic. That's pretty good, right? Particularly, I think Lightning Weakness is good.
Yeah, Lightning Weakness is great.
Resistance to Fighting, definitely could be good, but that's good, right? But then you're not really using the Eternal Flame. Like, I think either you're playing this in some sort of weird Stage 2 fire deck where this is purely a setup card, which ideally you want to attack with on turn 2, or you're using it in, like, an energy-intensive fire deck, which is already playing Kiawe, and you want to sort of be able to use this as an early game attacker. This on its own with Kiawe cannot be a legitimate deck, right? Yeah. Like, it's good, but having to spend your whole turn just using the supporter, like, okay, it's fine early on because you don't discard the attack, right? So you can, the first Ho-Oh can power its way through, but maybe the second one you can power with Max Elixirs. I don't know, maybe there's something there, possibly, but I don't think this doesn't work as a deck on its own, which means you sort of have to use it for its GX attack, but if you're using it for its GX attack, it's probably not. Then you probably wouldn't be using Kiawe to attack with it, because if you're wasting turns to get out 3 GX Pokemon, you don't want to also be wasting turns to play Kiawe. Like, I think it's kind of an awkward card where the GX attack and its attack don't sort of gel together. So it's either going to be doing one of the two, if that makes sense. But what are the other Stage 2 Pokemon you could get out with Eternal Flame? So obviously Incineroar is one of them.
You could get a Charizard GX out.
But the only good thing about it is the GX attack. So then, okay, you can use Crimson Storm once and then lose. But what else is there?
All Pokemon EX are basics, I believe. So
I'm just thinking.
Apart from Megas.
I don't think there's
Mega Houndoom, I guess you could.
That's
not really worthwhile. So I think it's one to just keep an eye out for. It's sort of one of those cards you just got to keep in the back of your mind whenever you see Fire Stage 2s. Like, is this a potential for Ho-Oh kind of thing? So I can't see any immediate application for this card. Phoenix Burn is for Eternal Flame GX rather, but Phoenix Burn is probably what it's going to be used for. People have talked about it in Volcanion decks.
Right. I suppose I didn't actually think of that. Because 4 energy though.
It's got an alternate weakness. You're probably running Kiawe and Volcanion most of the time, but my problem is how reliably can you get it out as a one of, ideally you're going to Kiawe on the first turn and then never again, really, because if you a turn to attach some energy, unless it's your first turn, it's not really going to be that beneficial to you because you allow your opponent to get a good hit on you before you can even use those energies. So I think, people have talked about it as a one-off in Volcanion. I'm not sold, mainly because you can't really reliably get it out on your first or second turn because you're probably going to want to Ultra Ball for something else, like Baby Volcanion, Turtonator, whatnot. So, but it does have Lightning weakness, so it has an alternate weakness for Volcanion. Again, I'm not really sold on that because Volcanion hits so hard anyway that weakness never really comes into it that much for the deck because you can just trade one-hit KOs, but who knows? I could be wrong on that. I definitely could see myself being wrong on that, but I can't see Ho-Oh being that effective in Volcanion at the moment.
Yeah, it's a shame that it only gets out EX and GX with the GX attack.
Absolutely.
I'd love to get out 3 Delphox.
I know.
Get out 3 Delphox would be sick.
So Ho-Oh is a really great card, I think. But as you said, kind of awkward in that its attacks don't really gel together. There's no synergy there as such. So we'll just have to wait and see. Keep it in the back of your minds for the future.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so another classic Simi coming up.
Classic Simi, and this one is no better, unfortunately.
The old bulk rare Simisear.
Yeah, that's a rare. All right, we'll better watch out for that one. Just be prepared for disappointment when you see that in one of your packs. Heatmor is probably the same.
Yeah, you have no idea how many Simisears, Pansears, and Simisage I've pulled.
Yeah, I've plenty in my attic. If anyone wants them, just let me know. So Heatmor, from previous sets, I should add. Yeah, Heatmor not very good, basically. Yeah, Otisluth, it's a terrible version of Sableye.
Yep.
So, do not play this card ever. Salazzle, this is interesting.
Yep. Interesting is the word I would use.
Yeah, it's a strange sort of card. On the one hand, you sort of think it's kind of, you'd rather just use Volcanion, right? So what advantage does just using Salazzle have over Volcanion? Well, I suppose the advantage is that you have access to the other Salazzle. So the other one, when you put it in place, the one that was just releasing Guardians Rising, your opponent's both poison or burn, so essentially you're getting a free 30 damage. Say Heat Blast, right? So 110 damage, plus Choice Band, plus the other Salazzle. You're doing 170 damage. And then once you get a few prizes on the board, Diabolical Claws actually... So once you get 3 prizes, that's doing 150 base, which is actually pretty strong.
Yeah.
So this could sort of be like an... Look, I don't necessarily want to compare it to Volcanion just because it's fire, but it is kind of similar in the sense that it has similar HP, it's a 2-prize attacker, it's weak to the same thing, so it sort of does have to be compared in that sense. It is a stage 1, so it's going to be a bit clunkier, and the fact you have to rely on its other version to use. Basically, I don't think this is going to be used until rotation, maybe post-rotation, once the format slows down, and see some play.
Yeah.
The GX attack I'm not a huge fan of.
No, me neither.
It's not... Yeah, look, there'll be some mashups where the opponent wants to pile a bunch of energy onto the active. Maybe Gardevoir is actually one of those, but like if your opponent's got, say, like 4 energy on a Gardevoir, it's more efficient to Queen's Haze before attacking.
Yeah.
But even that's not going to be that great, but you can do it, you know. And but also using 2 energy to attack isn't particularly sustainable, so if this ever gets knocked out in one hit, you're going to struggle to power up another one. So it's just kind of awkward.
I think Diabolical Claws is like a really good attack in that it can ramp up damage as the game goes on, which is what you really like to see. But Heat Blast and Queen's Haze just lack so much. If they were a bit, if Heat Blast did a bit more, say 140, and then with a Choice Band you get a 170 or something like that.
Yeah, you don't need to use the other Salazzle just to get.
Yeah, then you can knock out like Tapu Leles and things like that. I think that would be good. Queen's Haze is just another GX attack that just doesn't really seem to fit with the theme of the card.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit odd, you know. It doesn't sort of fit. Whereas I think with Umbreon, for instance, I think it sort of fits a bit better. And also Umbreon's more versatile because you can discard off the bench. But with this sort of card, you're aiming to get sort of one-hit knockouts, and why would you discard? It's pretty niche. But I don't think this is going to see a whole lot of play.
No.
But I don't know.
Think,
these cards are hard to evaluate.
Yeah, Salazzle is sort of one of those classic GX or /EX cards which just falls short of the mark, I think. It's almost good. If you change one thing, it could be good, but I think it's just probably not going to see that much play. But people will definitely try it. I can definitely see myself running into this deck on PTCGO. So
and that is the mark for what a good deck is.
All right, so
Turtonator. Not worth talking about. Aside from the fact it's a promo, but Alolan Vulpix, do not play this over the other one.
Nope.
Alolan Ninetales, this was a card that's was actually delayed, I think, until this set. It actually released in the equivalent of the Guardians Rising set in Japan.
Yeah, I think
Luminous Barrier is a really good ability. I think this is something that's going to be seeing a lot more play post-rotation once Hex Maniac goes out of the format. While we have Hex Maniac in the format, along with Versus Seeker as well, that makes it even worse.
Yeah.
It's just too easy to get around this, right? Because Aurora Beam it's okay, but it's not good enough to the point where, in order for this card to add value to your deck, say you're playing an Alolan Ninetales deck, right? In order for it to really add value, it's got to stay there for at least a turn or two. The ability's got to actually impact the game for at least a turn or two. Otherwise, okay, you're doing 80 or 110 with the Choice Band, and then it's just getting knocked out. Like, it's not... In order to impact the game, the Safeguard has to be pretty oppressive for the opponent to deal with, because otherwise it's not putting on enough pressure. Once rotation happens, though, this actually could be a thorn in the side of a lot of decks, and I think what we'll see is decks of like playing non-GX or EX Pokemon just to deal with this, like we've seen in previous formats, like with decks having to deal with Sigilith, was a big one in Suicune. But now if decks have it easy, they could just play Hex Maniac, which they probably already are, combined with Tapu Lele and Versus Seeker. It's just so easy for decks to get around this. They don't need to play any non-EX or GX Pokemon to deal with this. Once rotation happens, this could be a lot better. I think this would, not format defining, but I think this will exert a real presence on the metagame, but not right now.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think it could be sort of a natural fit in sort of the other with Alolan Ninetales GX. In that Alolan Ninetales GX usually takes a few turns to get going, so it'd be nice to just throw this up into the active and just buy yourself a couple of turns while you can get your Aqua Patches and double colorless off. So I think it's a reasonably natural fit with the Alolan Ninetales GX. Of course, you'll have to evolve one of your Alolan Vulpix, so you'll be restricted to 3 Alolan Ninetales GX, but I think it's a pretty natural fit. And I could possibly see this becoming a deck on its own, just a GX EX hate deck after post-rotation, as you said, once Hex Maniac, and then go out of format. With Aqua Patch, you can pretty reliably power it up to just stream them, which is something that was hard to do with Sigilyph back in the day. You can really stream them that efficiently, maybe 1 or 2, but although we did see Quad Sigilyph, didn't we?
So, we did see Quad Sigilyph, yeah, that was an interesting deck. And so by interesting, I mean really boring. But the problem with this deck, I think, is, well, so I think it'll be more of a tech card. I mean, we'll see, but I think unless we see a format, because Quad Sigilyph was a perfect example where the format became so concentrated on the X Pokemon that a deck that intrinsically wasn't very good and could be beaten pretty easily just by taking a few, 90X cards could beat, but they just sort of found a niche in the format.
Yeah,
I think this will be kind of a similar deal. Yeah, I mean, my issue is that a lot of the decks I'm thinking of for next format can pretty easily incorporate non-EX or non-GX cards, because I think one of the things was, again, not to draw a complete comparison, but again with Quad Sigilyph, right, a lot of decks would play, say, like 1 non-EX attacker, but you could eventually overpower them by playing 4 Sigilyph, right? Okay, exactly. They can get out there 1 Zekrom or something, but eventually you're going to knock that out, and even if they get out again, you're just going to have this horde of Sigilyph, right? With this, I think the sort of decks that we'll see, things like Metagross, things like Gardevoir, it's a lot easier for them, that they've got more natural fit in terms of including non-GX Pokemon. So, for instance, Gardevoir has Gallade. Not only does Gallade one-shot Ninetales, it can't even be one-shot back by Ninetales. So that, for instance, would be totally... I think that would just be a deal-breaker, right? So, and say Metagross, that can easily just take in like a Cobalion or something, which, again, can't be one-hit carried by this, and which conversely can one-hit carry Ninetales. And so... And can be powered up by Metagross really easy. Things like that, for instance, it doesn't have to be Cobalion, it can be something else, but... Basically, I feel like the decks we're going to see next format can more easily tech stuff in to beat this. But, look, it could still be a good one-off, just to catch your opponent off guard if your opponent's playing, like, no non-GX Pokemon.
Yeah.
But, I don't think it'll be as effective as Sigilyph was back in the past. I don't think we'll see, like, auto-win matchups where, you know, people can't deal with Sigilyph. I think it's a bit weaker than that, but it's something to keep an eye out for next format.
Actually... I wonder if this could be played in Decidueye Ninetales. Decidueye Ninetales now choosing to play Alolan Ninetales GX.
You could play with Rainbow. You'd have to change. You'd have to change your energy lineup. So you'd have to play Rainbow. Well, unless you want to play Water Energy. Yeah. Probably not advisable. Yeah, you could do that.
It sort of fits in with the strategy of Decidueye in that you just want to stick around for as long as possible and use as many feather arrows as you can.
Yeah, Hex Maniac though, because Hex Maniac kills 2 birds with 1 stone. Hex is already good against Decidueye. Yeah. If Decidueye Vileplume is still a deck next format, which is an interesting discussion in and of itself, but if it's a deck next format, maybe you could see this and that. Currently speaking, I think like Hex is... People would want a Hex anyway, and Hex also beats this, and you're committing 2 energy to it, and Decidueye is a deck that struggles with streaming energy attachments as it is, so committing 2 energy to something that... Unless you think you're just having it as a pure store card.
Just a pure wall.
But then you're not doing any damage, and then it's hard enough to get Vulpix and a Ninetales out as it is, and you're using a Vulpix to get out something that isn't doing any damage. So all you're doing is Feather Arrows, and then your opponent just needs to get Tapu Lele for Hex Maniac or Reverse Seeker or just draw into it. I don't think we'll see it in that capacity.
But yeah.
Sorry. I'm just sorry to shoot down your dreams, but look, I could be wrong.
I was more thinking about it like after.
After. That's fair enough.
Once. But I don't even know if Decidueye Ninetales will be a deck after rotation. That's another issue altogether with Forest rotating. But moving on, Horsea, Seadra, Kingdra, the classic attacks. Classic Pokemon attacks.
Yeah, classic. Kingdra's actually not bad. Kingdra's. I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like it's not good enough to play, but it's in and of itself pretty good.
Yeah.
But just not quite good enough.
No. I like that there's synergy within the evolution line and that all of them do snipe. So that's pretty cool.
Tornado Shot's good. Tornado Shot's like you're doing 120 damage for one. I mean, but even with Choice Band, you're sort of falling short. 120 and 30 snipes, pretty good, but
Hey, it's a Night Spirit for 1 energy.
It is a Night Spirit for 1 energy, yeah. But it's pretty fragile.
And grass weakness is horrible.
Yeah, true. Grass weakness is pretty terrible. And I think post-rotation, no teammates is like really bad for these sort of decks. Getting out a constant stream of Pokemon. Stage 2s is just too hard.
Yep. But it is a cute horsey.
Yeah, it is. No, honestly, I rate Kingdra and Seadra and Horsey just as Pokemon. I think they're really cool.
Yeah.
But if you want to play Kingdra, just play the old 0809 format and just play Kingdra from Legends Awakened.
All right.
If you
it's your boys. It's your boys rolling.
Unfortunately, I don't think it is. At first glance, when I looked at this, I'm like, oh hey, this is like a natural fit. And I did a double take. I'm like, wait, no, this doesn't work at all. Because the problem is that, I mean, look. Yeah, you can't... Okay, in order for this attack to be good... Well, for starters, you've got 1 Magikarp already under the Gyarados, so the max you can have is 3. But you're never actually going to get 3 Magikarp in your discard pile. Unless...
Unless it's the last attack to win the game.
Okay, if it's the last attack to win the game, I suppose...
but even then, you probably
the problem is that the Gyarados that attacked before this...
Yeah.
If this was the only Magikarp... Okay, so the only way that you could have all your Magikarp in the bench was... The Gyarados... So we're talking about this in the context of the normal Gyarados deck, right? Which disappears post-rotation. So we can only talk about this in the context of, like, right now, right? So, in order for this to do the max damage, this would have had to be your only Magikarp. The Magikarp that evolved into this Gyarados would have had to be the only Magikarp on your bench, right? Which means that the Gyarados before could have only been doing a base of 90 damage with full retaliation. That's the problem, right? Because if you had 2 Magikarp on your bench, then that Ancient Origins Gyarados gets knocked out. You send this Gyarados up, but then you've still got a Magikarp stuck on your bench, which you can't get rid of. And so you have a max of 2 Magikarp in your discard pile. That's the problem with this card. It doesn't even work as like an endgame finisher, because the penultimate Gyarados would have had to attack with only 1 Magikarp on the bench, which would have had to be the Magikarp that evolved into this Gyarados. So basically, I think it's terrible. It is terrible. Well, I mean, maybe, okay, what about a deck that focuses on this entirely? But then you can't... Yeah, that doesn't work either. Because if you have a Magikarp on your bench and a Magikarp that evolved into this, you're doing a max of 100 damage. Yeah. Like, the only way this would work is with Archie's Ace in the Hole. But that's rotating, isn't it? So...
yeah.
You can't even play that anymore, so that doesn't work.
This card just makes you mad.
Yeah.
Splash burn.
Yeah, you can kill all your Magikarps just for the fun of it. You can play through Water Energy in your Gyarados deck and Splash Burn and make yourself lose the game.
Yeah, exactly.
It looks tantalizing. You're like, oh yeah, this is like... But then when you think about it, it doesn't work. So, unfortunately, it isn't good. And the Magikarp can't actually attack for double colors. Like all Magikarp in the format, so... Yeah. And it has exactly 30 HP and 1 retreat, weakness to lightning. So you can use this Magikarp in your Gyarados deck before rotation. It doesn't matter what you do, but yeah.
It would have been nice if the splashing dodge was for colorless or double colorless.
Yeah, that would like legitimately be like that would actually help Gyarados quite a bit, to be honest. But unfortunately, they didn't do that. So
Marill and Azumarill.
We have not had a good Azumarill in I can't even remember
ever,
last.
I think.
They've really again another Gen 2 Pokemon I like, but they just are keen on not giving this a good card.
No. The Simmies are
Simipour is even worse than the other Simmies. Like, the other ones at least could attach from the hand and discard. This one could only move energy, so what on earth is that all about? Bruxish is actually... this is probably worth talking about, I think. Just briefly, I think. Synchronize, that could be, like... I don't know, I think in a spread sort of deck, there could be decks in... Well, I think there are decks in the format which are basically mono-type, and that's actually a pretty good spread attack. For just a water and a double colors, like you could just max elixir onto that. Oh, sorry, Aqua Patch even. Aqua Patch works as well. And you could have a reasonable. It's a reasonable attack. It's just it's a one prize attacker. It can confuse. It can confuse for an energy.
No sale.
Yeah, I've got to work on my pitching skills. But look, it's a hard sell. But I think there are worse cards than this, right? Because I think one thing that water decks are lacking is a good basic one prize attacker, because Articuno is going to be rotating. Not that Articuno I think has played in a lot of sort of Lapras decks anyway, but I think post rotation this could actually see play as sort of your basic like one prize attacker, because otherwise that's a niche the deck doesn't have, right? You can play Lapras or this Happy Finny that we see here. We'll get to that, but okay, but where's your non? You may as well have like a non-EX attacker. So I don't know. It's probably not that good but I'll bring it up. Anyway, Tapu Fini is a bit more interesting, I think. I'm actually not a huge fan of it, but I know some people are and think that it deserves a spot in these water box decks. I personally think the only good thing about it is that it doesn't have a weakness, whereas Lapras has that pretty debilitating grass weakness. I mean, well, it's debilitating to the extent that Decidueye the deck. I think post-rotation, grass is probably the best weakness to have, but what do you reckon about this?
I'm in the same boat as you, really. On the surface, it looks like a really good card. 120 snipe anywhere is really nice, but then when you actually think about it, does that allow you to get 2 easy prizes anywhere? Probably not.
No, and post-rotation, no Shaman,
Yeah, exactly. Shaman's gone. Even Shaman's not even played that much now, so even pre-rotation, it's probably not going to be that great. And committing 3 energy to it to do 120 snipe. Yes, snipe anywhere is good, but 3 energy, you might as well power up like a Lapras or something, and then whack for like 160 or 190.
Yeah, definitely.
So, and Tapu Storm GX is probably the selling point of the card, in that Lapras's Ice Beam GX probably loses some effectiveness with things like Guzma and things like that, so this gives you another GX attack that you can use, and it could be good, but I don't know. It seems very niche.
I think if you see a matchup that you think that Ice Beam isn't good in, but Tapu Storm is good in, maybe that's worth playing. I actually don't think Tapu Storm's that great, but it's okay. And also think Hydro Shot, right? 120 snipe isn't great, but also discarding 2 water energy, like just for attacking, is kind of bad as well. But it could be, you could see a one-off played. It's one of those things. It's not going to harm you by playing it. It's at least going to be like moderately useful, and it has no weakness, so it's sort of a kind of a natural fit, but it also crucially it has 20 less HP than Lapras does. That's something that is a bit of a bummer as well, but I don't think this is great. It's not going to set the world on fire, but
I think if it didn't have that clause, if your opponent has no bench Pokemon, this
I agree.
That would be absolutely amazing. Like, you would definitely see this being played.
Well, I don't know, but benching, but like how often do you actually get to donk anyone? Like, because your opponent's got to get no basics in order for it to donk. And plus, like, Waterbox is a deck that can attack turn 1 anyway. Like, Lapras can donk as well. Even without that clause, I don't think it would be that good. But hey, at least you could jank out a win occasionally.
You could jank out some wins if it didn't have that clause. But anyway, I agree with you. It's on the surface seems really good. This card would have been great a while back when Shaman was all.
Yeah, I agree. I think with more Shaman, but 120 snipes not really going to cut it.
No. Alright, so Raichu, auto paralysis when you evolve. Probably not that great.
You could play this as like a tech in Circle Circuit Raichu decks possibly. So for things that you can't take down in one hit, you could like paralyze them, but it's so situational. You've got to waste a Pikachu just to get this out, which is a Pikachu that could evolve to a Circle Circuit Raichu. And paralysis, and it has to be stuff that you can't knock out already, so then there's another clause to that. And then also, there's heaps of ways your opponent can get around paralysis anyway. So,
and you could probably only use one of them if you're playing it with the Circle Circuit. Otherwise, you'll run out of attackers.
Exactly. Because you have to evolve a Pikachu from it. So I don't think this is good at all. Look, in Raichu, I suppose maybe this sees some niche play with like Devolution Spray in decks that might benefit heaps from having your opponent stuck in paralysis. Maybe that's where it gets. I don't know. Maybe it expanded. You could play Sableye and just keep getting back Devolution Sprays and just keep paralyzing your opponent. I don't know.
I'm not doing it while Hypnotoxic lasering them.
Yeah, actually, there you go. There's a deck. I'm sure it loses just about everything, but there you go. There's some reason to play it. It's not going to work particularly well with the Circle Circuit Raichu, but it has to be done for paralysis abuse, which I don't think is going to work because of Guzma and all these other cards. Yeah.
It always amazes me that they make Pikachu and Raichu like almost good.
I think Circle Circle Raichu was good enough to be like legitimately good. That's won tournaments.
That won tournaments, I guess. Early on in its release, when Yveltal EX was just released as well, it was pretty massive.
Yeah,
that was a highly tapped card, but
Skychu decks have done alright. Like not even just now, but even in a few years ago. It's actually a pretty old deck when you think about it, because it got reprinted. But probably a discussion for another day. But it's interesting that they have printed another Raichu, and it's probably not worth playing in anything, but there you go.
No, I don't really want to say anything about these cards.
They look cool, that's about it.
Yep. Electric. No.
Dynamo, the ultimate tech against water decks. Yeah, Electros, this is not good. I hate Electros for reasons, other reasons. Yeah, I lost a sudden death match 5 years ago against someone who teched an Electros in their electric deck. That is probably the weirdest game of Pokemon I've ever played in my entire playing days. But I have scars from that match. Yep. So I hate Electros now.
Alright, so if you guys want to troll Roland, just send him some Electros in the mail.
Yeah.
He'll really appreciate it. So, Togedemaru.
I didn't know that was even a Pokemon. That doesn't even evolve? It's got 40 HP and it doesn't even evolve.
Nope.
Unless it evolved to something of a different type.
No, it does. I'm pretty sure it's just a basic.
What is... Oh, that is just an abomination.
Just look at it, Roland. Take it in. If it'll
I'm glad it's not loading. I'm glad Pokemon is giving you that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, it looks pretty cute, but why does it have 40 HP? Oh, no, it has 80 HP.
80 HP.
It says 40 on the Pokebeach thing. Pokebeach Stiffy Gamer.
This is why you look at the scans, Roland. This is why you expand.
Yeah, well, it's... Yeah, okay. Well, okay, 80 HP. Well, okay, that's still terrible, but... Yeah, there's not much more to say about this. Slowking... you can attack for 0 energy, and it doesn't require an ability like Yanmega does. But you have to have no cards in your hand, which is just completely terrible in just every way. So, no, this is not good at all.
Wobbuffet, alright.
Wobbuffet. Well, I mean, look, you can do a lot of damage with it. If you can power it up, I mean, maybe with things like Max Elixir, and, what's that, the one, Choice Baton, that thing? Like, with what is it? The one that increases the stage 1 that increases. I can't remember what it's called, but because there was one in Double Crisis, there was Team Acra's Mark, and that increased retreat cost. But there's a new one as well, Dugtrio, I think. Yeah, Alolan Dugtrio. Yes, you can play Wobbuffet with Alolan Dugtrio. You can do a lot of damage with Shadowy Knot. That's something that you can do. And there's that Stadium, I think, which increases retreat cost as well. Unfortunately, you have to power up 3 Psychic Energy, and both EXP Share and Choice Baton can be Field Blood, so I don't think this will be very good, but it could be a fun, like, road deck compared to CGO. You could definitely stick a few wins in with it, I'm sure. Yep. And Survivor, another cool card. Poison's not something that you can really abuse right now. The only thing I can think of is, like, Salazzle. But then you're running out of bench spots. Then you need to play like Skyfield or something, which isn't quite going to work. Actually, it expanded. This seems pretty good with like this plus Burbank plus Hypnotoxic Laser and stuff like Seismitoad. Actually seems pretty busted. When you add Choice Band on top of that, just like straight Toad actually does heaps of damage. And that's like not even acknowledging the item lock benefits. So look, I don't know much about the expanded metagame, but that could be played. If we ever see a good poison card, this, you could just stack a bunch more damage, and it's a card to keep in the back of your head, but we don't have any good poison right now, unless I'm forgetting something, but...
Nope.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything either.
That's about it.
Alright. Dusknoir, another interesting Dusknoir, but unfortunately not a great Dusknoir.
Yeah, the problem is the attack cost. Again, you can't rely on things like EXP Share, especially when you want to be playing Choice Band, so actually powering up, and you can't Max Elixir to stage 2s, like you can Max Elixir to the basic, but then it's going to be hard for digging enough Psychic Energy to actually use Max Elixir with, again, because you've got to play double colors. Basically, it's going to be hard to actually power up Dusknoirs. I mean, look, Mindjack, it's a better version of Zoroark's, and the ability's pretty good. You could probably snag your opponent, like force them to bench a Pokemon that they otherwise wouldn't want to. So, like, if you could actually power up Dusknoirs, like, back to back to back, it's actually not, it wouldn't be a bad attacker. The problem is that, again, you need to devote your whole deck to it, and you can't have your whole deck based around Mindjack, because there is the chance your opponent... Well, A, doesn't bench Pokemon and is able to discard them with, like, Ultra Ball and stuff. So, the thing with Zoroark, right, is it's paired in other... Like, it's paired with Drampa, right? So, okay, or Umbreon. So, okay, if you play, like, no-bench Pokemon, they can still beat you down with, Zoroark or Drampa, and Zoroark Break is a thing. Basically, with Dusknoir, you need to make your whole deck based around attacking with it, which probably isn't sustainable, even with the ability. And you have the fact that powering them up back-to-back is too difficult. Basically,
that extra Psychic is just so painful.
Yeah,
if it was just a double colorless, probably still would be hard to play this deck, but the extra Psychic that's the nail in the coffin for me.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that does the trick. Looking at your opponent's hand every turn could be pretty good, even if you don't get to bench your Pokemon.
That's another benefit as well. But also, but I think the energy cost is just Yeah, too
so
much.
Sad face Dusknoir.
Sad face. I don't think he has a face really. He's just got some eyes, but
it's a helmet, I think.
Oh, he's got a helmet.
Anyway, Krogunk, Toxicroak. This could be the poison partner that Survivor needs.
Survivor. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't think of this one. Jeez, this is quite bad. We have had some usable Toxicroaks in the past. This is unfortunately not one of them.
Venipede, another poison type Pokemon.
Scolipede, what does this do? Oh boy, that is not good.
And we'll just scroll on past that one.
Meowstic. One of these like number of cards in hand deck. Yeah, these with N now, these decks aren't good. No. There was a brief period where the format didn't have N, and there was some fun. What was that? Gorgeist. That was one deck. There was you could actually have fun with that, but now N exists. So these sort of stockpiling cards in your hand decks simply don't work. Palossand. Jeez, we are scraping the bottom of the barrel already here. Necrozma. Okay, finally we get something. The light at the end of the tunnel, and so Black Ray is a fantastic GX attack. The question is, how do you use it? So it's a bit of an awkward card in the sense that, okay, you use the GX attack, but you'll probably want to attach like a double Colossus and some other energy to it. It's a great attack. You can do like 400, 500 damage potentially. At the lower end, maybe like 200, 300, but it's a good attack, right? The question is, how do you use it? Because you're not going to be getting outright knockouts with this. So, sort of the natural partner I've heard is things with like Decidueye. But you can even you can even have a deck with other sort of spread attackers as well that aren't Decidueye, because you might think it's a bit clunky. Yeah, things. Yeah, I actually don't know what that is, but things like that. So it's a very, very good attack, but it's awkward because once you use Black Ray, well, what do you follow up with? Because Prismatic Burst, even if you had like double Colossus and Psychic on it, and that's saying that you actually want to play Psychic in the deck, which is not a given, particularly if you're playing Decidueye, you'd rather play like Grass probably. Once you use Black Ray, and if it doesn't get knocked out, then what do you do? It's just sitting there with a bunch of energy, doing nothing. You might even want to play Ninja Boy, actually, just to make use of it if it doesn't get knocked out. Prismatic Burst, look, if you're playing Psychic in the deck, it could be used as like a one-off attack to do a bit of damage. Like let's just say you Black Ray with like a double Colossus and a Psychic energy, then the following turn, if it doesn't get knocked out, you attach a second Psychic and you go out with a bang and do 130 damage with the attack, like something like that. But you're not going to see like a deck dedicated to using Prismatic Burst. Like you could play like Metagross, Necrozma, but that's not worth doing. That's not going to help the Metagross deck at all. And you want to make use of Black Ray. That's where your value is coming from. The ability is also kind of weird, but aside from Mega Ray, which is going to be rotating, I don't really see that doing a whole lot. I mean, look, if there ever becomes a colorless meta deck, it's good against that, clearly. Obviously, it's very good against a colorless deck, which can't do anything against it. And then once we lose Hexmaniac, then, it's pretty much a hard counter. But, so, look, in the format right now, I guess it's good against Mega Ray to the extent that people play Mega Ray, which isn't very much, but it's a niche deck. But the question is, how are you going to use Black Ray? How are you going to get that value from it? It's an amazing attack, and you've got to think of a way to abuse it. Decidueye is probably the way to go, but people are going to work that out.
Yeah, and I agree. I can't think of an efficient way outside of Decidueye to make use of this attack. But a lot of times Decidueye also wants to Hollow Hunt GX, so you're sort of clashing there as well.
Yeah, I mean the only thing is that it's so powerful.
Faster,
the other thing is that it might be so powerful that you don't even need the resource recovery.
So we'll keep an eye out for it. It's a strange card, very powerful card in one sense, but also very weak in another, in that it doesn't have any follow up, as you said. Machamp GX.
This is. Oh, no. Hey, we had that good damage adding one a few years ago. That was actually pretty decent. But this is unfortunately, look, if you're gonna play a big stage 2 GX attacker, just play Gardevoir. For the love of everything, just play Gardevoir. It's just basically it's just better than this. Fighting Pokemon are kind of awkward because they don't have any energy acceleration aside from Carbink, which is really frustrating because the Safeguard thing on Carbink doesn't work for GXs. If it did, it'd be a lot better, and I'd still be running around playing Betacam, I think. But unfortunately, that is not the case, and this is too hard to power up. It's as simple as that, right? 3 energy is just bad when you have no acceleration, unless you're wasting turns using Carbink. At that point, you've just got a terrible, terrible deck. Even with strong energy, you can do as much damage as you want, but even if these 3 energy attacks read knock your opponent out, it still wouldn't be good because you just can't power it up. That's okay. Like, you are doing a lot of damage, right? But it's too hard to power up.
Yep. So yeah, we'll move on. Rhyhorn, Rhydon, Rhyperior.
Hey, Aggron's coming back. I'm glad to see my boy Aggron. He is back in Rhyperior form.
Mm-hmm.
Big, bulky, stage 2. Yeah. With Devolution Spray, maybe this could be like an alternative mill deck. If ever of mill decks fall back into favour, maybe this could be a way of approaching that. But I think the reason we saw Aggron be played even at all was Sableye Aggron. So you could junk hunt back for Devolution Sprays, and Sableye just gave you this innate consistency. This is going to be too hard to fit in. I think you wouldn't see something like Houndoom, Rhyperior, because you're going to struggle to fit everything in the one deck, unfortunately. Yeah. So maybe this later on has some use, but it's probably not going to be that good.
Yep. Lunatone and Solrock together. This is interesting in that there's quite a bit of healing around at the moment. In terms of mainly Metagross, really, using Max Potion. I guess, can you think of any decks which is auto loss to Metagross? A lot of decks lose to Metagross just healing. And not being able to hit Metagross. So I guess you could somehow get both of these out against a Metagross player and still have enough value from your remaining 4 slots to be able to hit Metagross, then this could be good. Does Metagross play Hexmaniac? I don't even know. I don't think so. If you could, but then I guess they could just Lysander up one of them and knock them out, and then the ability would switch off. So probably not that good.
No, I don't think we'll see unless healing sees a lot of play.
Yeah.
Look, I suppose in the next format, particularly once Hexmaniac disappears from the format, so 1, Metagross wouldn't have a way of shutting this off, but 2, it means that, because imagine, okay, I'm in the shoes of someone I'm playing a deck that is bad against Metagross. I'll probably rather put in another Hexmaniac into my deck, because Hexmaniac's also good against Metagross, but it's also good against other stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd probably prefer to play that. Once Hexmaniac goes out of the format, maybe, my only chance of betting Metagross is to tech these cards in. That's a possibility. I mean, also things like, once Flareon goes out of the format, because the way some decks beat Metagross is by taking Flareon, so for stage 1 decks. Again, that goes out of the format, so I feel like a lot of the other cards that you use to counter Metagross are going to rotate. So for some decks, they might think, okay, well, actually, these are the most attractive cards for me to play to beat Metagross. If I don't play these, I will lose to Metagross, but if I do play these, I actually probably will beat Metagross. So, yeah, I think we could see it. Again, the bench space is a bit of an issue, but for some decks, it might not be too big an issue. Again, well, actually, one other problem with this is, if you just play one of each, you've actually got a decent chance of one being prized, which is a bit of a bummer. Generally against Metagross, you do take early prizes, so you could luck out by, you knock out a Beldum or a Vulpix and you get one of them out, but there's a decent chance that one of them's prized, and then you're playing 2 spots in your deck and you're not getting any value out of them. Solrock actually is not a bad starter, because you can actually draw cards, so there's something, but
who knows?
But probably
Metagross, I guess Metagross, as I said, can just knock out one of them and then the ability goes offline. So
but you theoretically could Rescue Stretch them into play, and if Metagross is forced to Lysander, Guzma, I suppose, that's probably pretty good for you. And I don't know. I think
you could bridge it for them.
Yeah, exactly. I was just thinking that. Yeah, you could. So look, also I've heard of some people think of playing Max Potion like Gardevoir and Max Potion in things like, or just healing cards in, particularly Max Potion in Golisopad, stuff like that. So it could have broader usage, but probably we'll see. I think post rotation it might be played.
Okay, and Lucario, interesting ability. Probably not going to see that much play.
Yeah, the attack's just so bad. These abilities are pretty good, but the attack's just terrible.
Sork. Nope, not sending.
Yeah, nah.
Well, let's just power through this section because I don't think there's anything.
Yeah, when I said this wasn't as good as Guardians Rising, I think we're seeing that now.
Here comes the bulk. Okay, Marshadow GX. Roland, do you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so the question you have to ask yourself with this card is, why would you attack with this card as opposed to just attacking directly with the basic Pokemon? I think the big reason is that you want to get access to fighting types. So if fighting weak Pokemon, so things like Drampa, this allows you to just attack with whatever attacker you would use, but it gives you access to fighting types. So it's easy for you to knock out I think Tramper, Darkrai as well. Darkrai EX is another big one. I think that's pretty much it. But look, maybe you could see it as a tech in that sense. I suppose the other benefit is that similarly to like Mew EX in the past and even the Mew now, you can use a lot of different attacks with the one Pokemon. So potentially you could rotate between using multiple attacks. But I don't think that's a big selling point, particularly. And the stats aren't very good for it. So, I mean, another reason that you might use it is because it has more HP than whatever you're attacking with. But of course, it's a 2-price attacker. So let's just say there's a particular attack on a basic Pokemon and you'd rather have, and it doesn't have much HP, right? The basic Pokemon. Okay, so you have 150 HP now, which is better, but now you're giving up 2 prizes. So it's a trade-off, and maybe some decks would prefer to attack with something that has 150 HP and gives up 2 prizes rather than whatever the other basic Pokemon that they could have just put the energy onto directly had. So maybe that's, in some cases, is an upgrade, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be particularly appealing. The GX attack also isn't great because it relies on basic energy. So basically, in order for it to be good, you need 3 energy. I mean, maybe as a sort of a quick attack, you could use 2 and do like 100 damage. And that could come in clutch occasionally, but it's not a great GX attack. Its beatdown attack isn't particularly good. And I don't, again, aside from the weakness thing, which might pop up, I don't see too many reasons to like use this over just attacking with the other Pokemon directly. But yeah, who knows? Maybe it could see some play. Maybe an expander with Night March. Look, but it's not a overwhelmingly amazing card.
Nope. I think, initially when you look at this card, you think, wow, this could be great. I can use any basic Pokemon's attack in my discard pile. But it seems versatile, but in reality, it's not really. As you said, wouldn't you rather just attack with the basic Pokemon? B, how do you get the basic Pokemon in the discard pile?
Yeah, that too.
Battle Compressor, you need to Ultra Ball or Sycamore it away. So if you're wanting to play it as sort of a versatile type deck, you need to get that very specific Pokemon into the discard pile for a very specific matchup. It's kind of hard, and you'd rather just attack with the Pokemon itself. So I guess I can't see this card being played that much. 150 HP is incredibly low.
That's bad. And weakness to Psychic isn't doing it many favors right now. Trash Avalanche is going to do a number on it. And so say you think, oh, well, this is going to be great at knocking out Drampa, right? Well, guess what's paired with Drampa and Blooded X Garbodor? Yeah. So basically, in order for it to be safe, a Garbodor with a Choice Band, you only need 3 items in your discard pile for this to knock you out. So that's going to be a pretty tough ask, right? Especially when you need to get the basic Pokemon in the discard. So you've got to avoid playing Ultra Balls, and it's just I don't see it being particularly impactful.
But I do like the name Peerless 100 Blows.
That is a good name, and crucially, they didn't change that for English. That is the English name, as you can see on the card. It's a bit minimized, but you can see it. Yeah, that is the English name, so you can use that attack in a tournament. Peerless 100 Blows. If anyone can figure out what that really means, so Marshadow, he's alone, so he's peerless. And he hits you 100 times. But that doesn't even make sense.
Or is it his 100 blows are unmatched?
Oh, actually, that's a good point. Sorry, Yes. So there's no competition. There are no peers for his blows. Yeah, okay. Well, we've figured that one out.
Ironically, 100 blows only does 50 damage.
Yeah, exactly. So. It doesn't even make sense. With exactly 2 energy, you think for 100 damage, I suppose. So, there you go.
There you go. Anyway, Marshadow. Unfortunately, no, I don't think that's that great, but no.
It's better than Alolan Raticate, I think. Actually, no, sorry, no.
Is it?
No, I take that back. Sorry, I actually misread it. Yeah. You can do 60 damage for 0, so 90 with the Choice Band, and with like evolutions, you can potentially knock stuff out for 0 energy. So actually, a lot of Raticate might be a better card. No, look, it's not great, but and again, the evolutions are rotating, so I think. Post-rotation, this card is like completely useless. Currently, maybe it could be a fun sort of rogue deck, but it's not going to set the world on fire. 60 damage, if you're not hitting for weakness, is not particularly good.
Nope. Alright, Alolan Muck GX.
Yeah. I suppose Grime is actually pretty good, but Alolan Muck, this is kind of one of those fun cards, like, all hailing back to the days of Flariados. These sort of like evolve status condition and attack with a multiple of status damage. Well, even Ninetales, the card that, it's not in the format anymore, but you can play it in sort of expanded if you want. But these decks haven't been sort of good for a while, And I think this is going to continue the trend. Chemical Breath with 2 special conditions, so say using Salazzle, which is probably the way that you use this. Like maybe you could use Hypno, I suppose, with... yeah, I mean, it just poses so many problems, because if you get Hexed, you can't do any damage, basically.
Yeah.
And you're doing decent damage, and look, at the end of the day, at 220 HP, it's pretty tanky, actually. But you need to evolve to Salazzle, and needing that to do good damage is pretty debilitating. Tri-Hazard GX is actually extremely, like, it looks really good, but when you actually work it out, because Burn disappears after you use it, right? But it's not a flip, is it? It just disappears after...
No, it's a flip. So it's guaranteed to do 2 damage.
It could stay.
But then they flip to see if they can get out of it.
Okay.
So you're guaranteed 2 damage, 3 damage with poison.
Okay, but a lot of the time... Okay, so let's just say if they flip heads on Burn, right? So the classic situation is, okay, so let's say your opponent hexes you, and you can't actually do a lot of damage with Chemical Breath. You go, haha, I will Tri-Hazard GX, say like a Tapu Lele, right? This has to be an easy 2 prizes, you know, I'm putting 3 status conditions on it. The problem here is, one of the problems is that your opponent could play switching cards and get it out of there, which is something that a lot of decks are probably going to play. The big problem actually is that if they flip heads on the Burn, if you do the math right, let's just say, so with Poison and Burn, it's going to be 40 coming back to your turn. But the problem is they only have 1 special condition on them if they flip heads on Burn. So Chemical Breath is only doing 80 damage, 110 with the Choice Band. So they've got 40 on them, you're doing 110, plus the 10 for Poison, is 10 short of knocking out a Tapu Lele. So that might seem like a niche situation, but that is probably what you would do, try and aim for more often than not. So you're relying on your opponent to flip Tails on Burn to get hit by Burn twice. And if they don't, then this actually fails to even sort of be a cheap 2 prizes, right? And so, look, it's a neat attack in the sense that if you get hexed or if you don't have the requisite energy, because of course Chemical Breath requires 2 specific energy, DC and Dark, you can sort of fall back on an attack that theoretically should get you some easy prizes if your opponent has bench sitters on there. But the fact that only 1 special condition is guaranteed to stay there is actually kind of debilitating. Yeah.
Yep. No, I agree. I think, as you said, Salazzle is probably the only viable partner right now. So getting that as well as the requisite energy to attack with Chemical Breath is a bit of a pain. And as you said, Hex is always going to be around. Well, not always going to be around, but it's around right now. So it does a number on this ability-reliant deck. Doing 10 damage a turn is not really going to cut it.
Hey, 40 with the Choice Band. Yeah, and Crunch I suppose you can fall back on, but again, Crunch doesn't actually do enough damage. The only time that Crunch knocks out GXs is when you have Salazzle to do extra damage. And if you have Salazzle to do extra damage, then you'd rather attack with Chemical Breath. Like, say, with a Choice Band, Crunch hits for 150, but that's not enough. And even non-GX Pokemon generally have more than 120 HP, so Crunch isn't good, really. And I think ultimately what's going to hamper it is the fact that Tri-Hazard isn't an easy get-out-of-jail-free card. You know, your opponent can switch out of it pretty easily with things like Godsma, and the special conditions aren't guaranteed to stay on there except for Poison, so it's not like coming back to your turn, it's necessarily going to be an easy prize or 2, and I think that's ultimately sort of what's going to hamper it. Also, the weakness to fighting with Gallade being a thing which we'll get to, I think is going to be pretty bad.
But I will give them props for the art. I really like the art on this
sick.
card.
I love it. Actually, it's one of my favorite Jex arts. Yeah, it looks awesome.
So sweet art on that. Great. All right, moving on.
Weavile, actually interesting card. I don't think it's good enough to play in a deck because it's so hit or miss. But 60 damage to everything that has an ability, that actually against some decks would be pretty good.
Absolutely.
Right? So sort of in a similar vein to Necrozma, I mean, not the same thing, but sort of a similar-ish thing. Like, that's 60 damage to a Lele. If your opponent's attacking Pokemon has an ability hitting that as well, you know, you can do a lot of damage with it, actually.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is, because it's a stage 1, it's more than just a tech card, right? So it'd need to be good against most decks in the format to warrant playing, because it's not something like, I can play 2/2 Weavile line, but okay, that's a lot of space to devote to something that in a lot of matchups isn't actually going to do that much. So
interesting card. Darkrai.
Could see tech. Could be a tech actually in Darkrai EX decks. Your opponent's using GX attack, you're doing quite a bit of damage, but Problem is it needs 3 energy on it, and because these decks don't play double colors otherwise, so
yep,
probably not going to be your sort of one prize attacker of choice. Probably decks going to stick with Yveltal. But yeah, Darkrai GX. What are your thoughts on this?
I think this is a really cool Darkrai. Resurrection is a great ability for getting Pokemon from your discard pile onto your bench with a Dark Energy. Of course, the obvious combination is with the Darkrai EX, which does more damage for each Dark you have in play. But overall, I think this card, that's just about the only good thing about it, unfortunately. Resurrection, Dark Rift, 130, hitting through resistance. I've actually tested this against Gardevoir, because the normal Darkrai EX doesn't really cut the mustard against Gardevoir, so hitting with Dark Rift for 130 could set up 2 shots, but problem is Gardevoir is just super efficient at knocking you out once you have 3 energy.
Yeah, exactly, because they need 1 less energy. I mean, I think actually I'd rather attack with the regular Darkrai EX, because I think ideally you'd have enough energy in play to where a 2-shot isn't a problem. And also, because
that is surprisingly hard against Gardevoir.
Oh, well, I think then your deck's got bigger problems if it can't do enough damage to 2-shot. I think, look, I think this is a great card of seeing Darkrai. For starters, we're seeing that have a bit of a revival. Just these kind of really basic Darkrai decks coming back, like with a ton of energy and not many items. I think this might encourage a slightly faster build, especially post-rotation, once we see Garbodor not really... Trash Alliance Garbodor not really exerting as much of an impact. I think we could see like sort of turbo-ish kind of Darkrai decks fall back into favour. Even in a slower build deck, this is still worth playing. Even in a slower kind of Darkrai deck, this is still worth playing. And just getting an extra free energy or 2 is really good. And I think it makes the deck intrinsically a lot better. The question is, how's it going to match up against the metagame? And I think it's going to have a pretty terrible matchup against Guardy, especially with Gallade, because it's weak to fighting. So you're being beaten down from all sides in that matchup. I think intrinsically it makes the deck quite a lot better, but the question is, how does it match up against the metagame?
I think the thing about this Darkrai GX, you can actually power him up turn 1, should I say, which I have done a few times in testing. Just resurrection it onto the bench with an energy, max elixir and attach, and you're hitting for 130. Straight off the bat.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a better attack like on your first sort of turn than Dark Pulse is. I mean, Dark Pulse with 3 energy is at least doing 80, but 130 is better. Like, you're going to be knocking out stuff more quickly, but it's not a bad attack. Unfortunately, you can't really make use of the GX attack. There isn't an easy way. Like, we don't have something like Hypnotoxic Laser, but there's an easy way to affect your opponent with a special condition. If there was, that'd be really nice, because you'd get like 1-hit knockouts and those really big HP things like Metagross and Gardevoir. But I think the question, what's going to make Darkrai good is, dodging Gardevoir possibly, and the ability to hit for extremely high numbers to knock out things like Metagross. But I don't think that's realistic for the deck to hit. Even with this, I don't think it's going to be realistic for the deck to hit those sort of numbers.
The other interesting application of this card could be in Mega Ray, to get it back from the discard pile onto your bench for a bench sitter. So even if you lose your Skyfield, you discard it. Once you get Skyfield back, you can just put it straight onto your bench again. So that's an interesting application for this card. Not sure how much it we played, but something cool to think about.
Yeah, that's actually, I didn't think of that. But that could be interesting tech.
Dead End GX. Why can they give it a half decent GX attack? It's a great GX attack if your opponent's affected by a special condition.
Yeah, if there was an easy way to trigger it, it'd be a really good GX attack. Unfortunately,
Hypnotoxic Laser. I guess in expanded with Hypnotoxic Laser and Dark Patch, you can just whip a knockout out of nowhere.
Yeah, definitely. Well, this makes the Darkrai deck even more broken in expanded, because the deck has access to Dark Patch already, and now you get this as well. So that deck's gonna have an absolute field day. Unfortunately in standard, I think Darkrai as a deck is having a lot of issues, but it makes the deck better. So I think, if Darkrai has a good matchup against the format, this just makes the deck better.
But possibly doesn't. So, moving on to the main event. Gardevoir GX.
We mentioned it. It's so good that we just couldn't help but mention it in many of the other reviews. But this is a real powerhouse. So just straight off the bat, it accelerates energy just off its own. And your stacks, right? So say if you have 2 Gardevoir GX in play, you can use 2 Secret Springs. And Infinite Force is just a fantastic attack. It's a lot like Psychic Infinity was for Mega Mewtwo. It's better because you can use Choice Band on it, whereas of course with Mega Mewtwo, you're stuck playing Spirit Links. So really this reads kind of more like 30 plus 30 for each energy. It's a fantastic attack, and it scales really, really well against a lot of cards in the format. I think, and Twilight GX, I think, the question is how good is this card in non-Garbodor matchups, but at the very least, this card just destroys any sort of Trash Lanche focused deck because it's negating one of your attackers entirely, essentially. The question is how useful is that attack in other matchups? The question is like, okay, you can get any 10 cards. Is there some way of that being really, usable? Maybe you get back max potions or something that, if you can set up everything, you can sort of get back these crucial cards to abuse over and over again. I'm not sold on that. I'm not sold on Twilight being a good generalizable GX attack. No, it relies on the deck being very good at cycling through its cards, right? So maybe if you set up a Gallade on the bench with an Octillery, which we'll get to as an addition for this deck, but maybe you could, I can search everything I want, so I can take a turn to Twilight so I can, get all these broken cards back. I don't think we'll quite see that, but it's not a bad fallback attack if you have nothing else, and it's a good anti-deck out, sort of anti-Garbodor card that means that there are sort of niche things that it doesn't have to worry about. It's playing a fair, straight-on fight against most decks. And obviously, as alluded to, Gallade, you can just key it off the same line. Gallade's still going to be in the format post-rotation, but even right now, obviously it's not the format. And you can play with Octillery, so Gallade and Octillery using the Premonition ability, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, so you can basically stack the top of your deck, more or less, and draw what you want. So I think, and it provides a good one-prize attacker, but it also gives you a bit of consistency that offsets the fact that you're getting up another stage 2. And it's just another option this deck has. But Infinite Force, the raw power of that, combined with Secret Spring, is just, it's just really, really good. Resistance to Darkness is great. 230 HP is really, really strong.
It's just a great overall, not archetype, in that it has built-in energy acceleration, extremely powerful attack, which is cheap, and built-in consistency from the Premonition Octillery Abyssal Hand combo once you get it going. So overall, it just seems such a complete archetype, and 230 HP is huge. So of course not as big as Metagross or Decidueye, but still 230 is quite hard to hit for a lot of decks. A lot of decks cap out at like 200, 210. So 230 just puts it just out of one-shot range for a lot of decks. Metal weakness could be an issue with Metagross, but I can't... Can you see a way Gardevoir can get around Metagross? I can't really see it myself.
I think that's the one real sore point in this card. And also, Gallade has exactly 150 HP, so you can't really rely on that as being a fallback attacker against Metagross. Maybe the only thing is that if you get 5 energy on a Gardevoir with a choice band, you're actually one-shotting Metagross. So if you can outspeed them, and if you can just get a ton of energy into play, you can actually trade with them. So I don't think there's any way that you can avoid getting one KO'd. So I think that's something you've just got to accept. But theoretically, because Metagross is a slow deck, if you can just get up a bunch of Gardevoirs and trade one-hit knockouts, if you can get the first sort of knockout or 2 on like an Alolan or a Beldum, something like that, it's possible that you win. They're obviously a lot more efficient at trading than you are, because they only need 3 energy as opposed to 5, although of course double colors counts for 2, but and they get their energy from the discard pile with their ability, so they're more reliable in that sense. It's going to be a bad matchup, but I think the way you win it is just by brute force, because it's possible, right? This is a deck that can one-shot Metagross, so you can, if you set up well enough, compete with them, but you're going to obviously be on the back foot. So I think realistically that's going to be a bad matchup for the deck, and going to probably stop it from being sort of overly centralizing, maybe.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see how that pans out.
Metagross could be the check that this card needs to stop it from being absolutely rampant, sort of like Decidueye Vileplume was a little while ago. But really, really strong card, very strong archetype. And not much more to say. It's pretty much got everything you could want in a card slash archetype. So much so that you don't even really need to GX attack ever. You probably won't even ever need to Twilight GX really, unless you're playing against Trash Lines. Pretty good. Diancie, I've seen this card talked about as a potential for to be included in Gardevoir. I'm not really sold on it.
No, I agree.
I'm not sure. Like, when can you consistently get it out, and how long is it going to stick around once it's out there? Is it really worth it to be searching it out when you could just search out the Ralts or the Curlier itself. So yeah,
yeah,
unless you
Alolan
start with
Vulpix
it,
is so much better.
cool.
Yeah, I don't know why
exactly.
people are talking about this, because Alolan Vulpix crucially attacks with a 0 energy cost.
Yeah.
So you can actually retreat something to Alolan Vulpix if you want.
Yeah.
Whether or not we see Alolan Vulpix play in the deck, who knows? But Alolan Vulpix is definitely better than this is.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess the only positive this has over Alolan Vulpix is that it evolves straight away instead of putting it into your hand. But Alolan Vulpix gets 2 Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly.
One,
you get 2 Pokemon. But yeah.
And yeah, as you said, free attack. Like, that's Anyway, so yeah, I don't think Diancie is the automatic inclusion that people seem to think it is in Gardevoir. But Ribombee, cool ability, stage 1, sadness.
Yeah, if you're going to be playing something like this in a Gardevoir deck, you'd probably rather play the Oricorio, the one that gets 2 basic energy. It's just a basic. Obviously, it only works when you put it into play, but I think that's just a better play, realistically.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to Noivern GX. And this has Distort, 50 damage. Your opponent can't play any item cards on their next turn, so similar to Quaking Punch in that it requires 1 energy attachment in a double dragon, but it does do 50 damage, and it has 200 HP, so slightly buffed Quaking Punch. But not as good as Quaking Punch was back in the day, I don't think. A, this is a stage 1. B, it's Wake to Fairy, which is absolutely horrible with the new Gardevoir coming out. And C, Double Dragon will be rotating at the end of this season. So, that's pretty much all I have to say about Noivern GX. Do you want to add anything there? Roland?
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is actually an expanded could be pretty good with the other Noivern and Noivern Break. Boomburst GX, which is actually, funnily enough, not a very good GX attack, for just a Noivern GX deck. Like, if you were just like, I'm going to just play straight Noivern now before DD rotates. Boomburst, while in and of itself it might seem amazing, if you're not getting extra, if you don't have other attacks that spread, it actually doesn't really do that much. I mean, you set up things, but a lot of that 50 damage will be irrelevant. A lot of the 50 damage placements won't be relevant. In expanded with the other Noivern, which of course has that ability where if you flip heads where your opponent attacks you, you take no damage. An extremely annoying card to play against, which of course spreads for 30 as well. So look, this could see play in that, and it gives you other options, right? So you can deny deck special energy that really need it. And Distort's pretty good. So I think if you're going to play it, it's going to be an expanded. Yeah, I don't see this. The weakness to Fairy, as you said, is just terrible right now, with Gardevoir being a thing. So yeah. You've got a quick window to play it in standard before DD rotates, but I don't think it's going to be great.
Yeah, and you're going to have to Wally into your Noibat into Noivern if you want to get this off turn 1 to stop your opponent from playing items. But yeah, apart from that, I can't see any reliable way to get this going. So it's item lock is very strong, as we've seen in the past, but I think you're just asking a little bit too much with the Noivern GX, and it's just a little bit underwhelming overall. Seismitoad, of course, had support from things like Golbat and Crobat and Hypnotoxic Laser and things like that, which this really doesn't have. So 50 damage, just probably not going to cut the mustard at the end of the day. And yeah, as we keep saying, you don't want to be weak to Fairy with Gardevoir GX in the format. So Zygarde, that's a lot of energy. Core Enforcer, 150 damage. Wow. Okay.
With like a DDE and a double colors, you can do a lot of damage. But I'm just thinking maybe in like these decks don't really exist anymore. But like Reshiram sort of decks, you could power this up, and it could be your one prize attacker. Like in those those old Mega Ray decks.
Yeah, Mega Ray.
Yeah, this could be like a one of, but those decks aren't really a thing anymore. So I don't really think we'll see this.
Yeah. Although that could be an interesting idea. So with the Reshiram and double Dragon, you could potentially spam these, and with Choice Band, you're hitting 180.
Yeah, actually.
So that's not terrible, actually. Yeah, and they're all basics, so they're pretty easy to get going.
Yeah, and 150 HP, that's actually, like, for a one-price attacker, that's really good.
Yeah,
actually, who knows,
that
actually.
might be bad.
Yeah, something to look out for.
And, yeah, Guzma's another switching card to let you switch your Reshiram, so you can get off 2 Turbo Blazers. So, yeah, who knows? Might be something to that. Alright, so we will skip over Persian.
We have not had a good Persian in just... No. I can't remember the last good one we had.
Nope. But we've come to the main event, Porygon 2.
Yeah, Porygon 2. That's what this channel is all about. And
Calculate.
that is just terrible. That is so bad. Especially if you're completely dead drawing and you have nothing, it can help you get out of it. It's better than Code Check is on Porygon, I'll give it that. God, Beam is so bad. 3 energy for 40.
Are there any redeeming qualities about this card? The artwork? No.
Yeah, I'm not even a huge fan of the artwork, to be honest.
No, me
I think
neither.
Porygon 2 doesn't really work with that sort of artwork. It's got to be more like, it's got to have a better sheen to it.
Yeah, I think so.
As the leader on Porygon 2 aesthetics, I must say, not a huge fan of that. Porygon Z is sort of an interesting, obviously it's a really good ability. The problem is it's coming into playability on a stage 2. So how are you going to play this card? Well, you're just going to tech it into something? It's not realistic to actually fit this in anywhere. That being said, the ability is actually very good. I mean, we're seeing that with Espeon X being used a lot, and having it on ability means you don't even have to attack to get the devolution. So, but yeah, it's just impossible to use basically. So yeah, and its attack is just so bad. That is really terrible.
Yeah, one day they'll bring out a good Porygon line, and we will play that deck.
Well, back in the day, there was that promo Porygon that actually saw a bit of play.
Oh yeah,
that wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, again, that was like 7 years ago. So come on, throw us the bone, PDC, PD, TBCI, whatever. Throw us the bone, please. We want a good one.
Yeah. So okay, Hoothoot, Noctowl. Not much to say about these cards.
No, there is none.
Bouffalant, Noibat. I'll skip right over these.
Yeah, just hope you don't pull these cards. Actually, Noibat, that's a good Noibat actually. For expanded, if you think you're playing Noivern, that's a good Noibat actually.
Stoofle. I did not know this was a Pokemon.
Well, you learn something every day. Beware is also not very good either. It's the bear that evolves into Beware.
Ah, of course.
But did we already have like a bunch of bear Pokemon? Why do we need another one? We had Beartic. What is the point of this?
Beware.
It's colorless. It's not even like... What? It's like it's wearing a mask. It's not an actual bear, it's a fake bear. It's just a person in a costume. That's what I'm imagining it as. It's a person in a theme park novelty sort of costume.
Yeah, that's exactly.
It's probably why it sucks, because it's not a real bear. It doesn't actually have like bear powers.
Yeah.
Beartic was pretty strong. That was played in a few decks. The Emerging Powers one, this is just rubbish.
Right.
What isn't rubbish though is Acerola.
Yep.
So harking back to the days of AZ, like a pick up, like sort of a scoop up supporter. This is a bit different. It's better and worse in some respects. AZ you could use when you didn't have damage on you. So if you wanted to pick up something, but for reasons other than healing it, so if you wanted to reuse the coming into play ability, something like that, which I don't think we'll really see too much of. So I actually think in the current format, this is more suited. Yeah, you can use AZ to reuse Tapu Lele and grab another supporter. Yeah, probably wouldn't have been the best combo, but yeah. So being able to heal something, but crucially, what this has over AZ is that you pick up all the cards attached to the Pokemon, whereas AZ, infamously, you had to discard all of them, which is actually a bit of a pain. So if you were, say, I don't know, you're healing like a Seismitoad, right, with a double colorless and a muscle band, well, you've got to discard the double colorless and the muscle band, which actually kind of sucks. Now you get to pick up all the cards attached to it, so, you know, all the tools and energy possibly. So it's pretty good. So we're talking about, say, Golisopod, right? So say you use First Impression, your opponent attacks Golisopod, you just Acerola, you get to pick up your Choice Band and your energy and the whole line, set up a new one, use First Impression again. So, yeah, it's a good... We could even see, like, Tapu Koko GX, you know, possibly being a legitimate deck with this, because you can actually keep picking them up. I think Super Scoop Up is actually being reprinted in this as well.
It is, yes.
We're seeing a lot more scooping abilities, so some decks... Yeah, but this is strictly a healing card, whereas, like, Super Scoop Up and AZ could be used for, like, coming into a play effects, whereas this is more of a healing card, so, yeah, I think it's pretty good. But again, with Versus Singer rotating, these sort of niche supporters are harder to use, but in the meantime, I think it'll see some play.
Don't really have much more to add to that. Bodybuilding dumbbells. 40 extra HP onto your stage 1s. That could be pretty useful.
Yeah, it could be clutch.
Yeah, but Field Blower does put a little bit of hurt on it, but we still see Fighting Fury Belt being played in a lot of decks at the moment. Well, not in a lot, but in a few decks at the moment. Still, so the 40 extra buff, I can think of like Lurantis is the classic Pokemon that I always want more HP on. Lurantis GX.
Yeah.
210 is just a little bit too low. So being able to just get that extra flower supply off or Chloroscythe and not be knocked out would be good. So Lurantis is the kind of Pokemon that I can see this being attached to, but you'd have to switch up the style of deck into more of a tank focused thing where you're healing all the time rather than using Choice Band and things
like
that.
Yeah, because you're choosing between this and Choice Band. Most Stage 1 decks would use Choice Band, so you have to use it in a Stage 1 deck that would prefer this.
But yeah, it's a decent card. Possibly could see some play. We've seen effects like this in the past, see some niche play with things like Hard Charm, Yveltal, which is not exactly the same, but similar. You're trying to tank a hit and then dish out damage, so could see some play, but Field Blower does kind of put a hurt on this, which is why most people choose to use Choice Band, because it just gives you that immediate effect. It's not a passive effect. It gives you an immediate damage boost. So yeah, Escape Rope getting a reprint, which means it will stay in format for another couple of years. And yeah, Escape Rope's seen a lot of decline in play since Garbodor has taken the format by storm. So I'm not really sure where this fits in at the moment, or whether is that good that it's being reprinted, or will just sort of slide by. But anyway, one of the better supporters in the set is the Guzma, and this has gotten a lot of hype. Roland, you wanna shed some light on this card?
Yeah, it's a bit of a funny card actually, because obviously it's a switch and a Life Center in one, which yeah, it's sort of, I think it's good more for the fact that it can be either a switch or a Lysander. I think you're rarely going to get value out of both of those propositions. Like, rarely is, okay, I need to switch something, but I also need to gust something up. I mean, there will be situations where you're going to make a lot of use out of both of them, but what makes it good is that it's a 2-in-1, right? So even in a situation where, okay, what I mainly want to do is switch my Pokemon, like, it's not going to be bad for you to also switch out and hit something else as well. But also in situations where, okay, all I want is a Lysander, generally it's not going to be too much of a pain to also switch my Pokemon, even if I wouldn't want to. I think we're going to see this played more with like the Tapu Koko promo, which has 0 retreat. I think it's crucial in order to use Guzma that you have those free retreat Pokemon. Otherwise, it actually can be a bit of a liability, and actually can sometimes be worse than Lysander, because you don't want that switching effect. Say you've got a Metagross powered up, right? And actually Metagross is a deck that would like this a lot, but there are in niche situations where, like, actually Metagross is a really, really bad example. Okay, look, anything else, right? You've just got something powered up, and say you've just powered up an Espeon, right? You're playing Espeon Guard, you've just powered up an Espeon, and you want to Lysander up something and use Psychic, for instance. But in order, you play Guzma, but then you have to set up one of your own Pokemon, and all your bench Pokemon have at least 1 retreat. And if it's the second turn, you can't afford to attach and retreat, for instance, right? So there are situations where it will be worse than Lysander, and there will be situations where it's better, obviously. I think on the whole, it's just generally a better card because it does the 2-in-1 function. So if you play things like Tapu Koko, you're not going to have the downside of, I don't want to switch. I sort of generally be better. Obviously, once Lysander rotates, it's a moot point because you have to play this instead. And then there are decks that really love it more than the average deck. Yeah, things like Golisopod, even Metagross. So that are going to like get super value out of this. So it's sort of a bit of a weird card, but it's ultimately a good one.
And how do you see this being played pre-rotation, so going into sort of Worlds?
That's the thing. I think it's going to be played, well, particularly in the decks that make special use out of it. I think even in other decks, they might play like 1 Guzma, 1 Lysander, something like that.
Yeah. So it can, as you said, it can lead you into some awkward situations where you want Lysander, you don't want Guzma, but having Tapu Koko is kind of that insurance, isn't it, against that kind of situation. Yeah. So we'll see if those free retreaters become almost mandatory in most decks. Just to have that added benefit of the free switch. Kiawe. So this is a card that's received some amount of hype, mainly by people favouring Volcanion, Turtonator, and things like that. It's a great card on the first turn. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. So if you want to tap a Lele for it on the first turn, you didn't already have it in your hand, you're definitely going to get a lot of value. And then, again, these Volcanion decks, they've already had to do a bit of soul searching and think, okay, how do I want to structure my deck? Am I going to play less Max Elixirs or less Baby Volcanions and focus more on Turtonator? They had to make some difficult decisions about how they wanted to structure their deck. This adds another difficult decision. So I have a bunch of ways I can accelerate energy. I've got Baby Volk, Max Elixir, Turtonator, and now I've got Kiawe as well.
Yeah.
So, I think the thing is that this is an easy inclusion. So, you're already playing Tapu Lele, so okay, why not chuck in a Kiawe? It's probably going to be good at some point. Same with Turtonator. Yeah. Turtonator was kind of an easy fit. So, but I think these decks are going to have to really think about how they want to actually structure their energy acceleration. Because you don't want to just go totally overboard, right? And play, I'm going to play 4 Max Elixir and 3 Baby Volcanion and 2 Turtonator and 2 Kiawe. Like, you wouldn't want to do that. So you've got to figure out which is the best, what do I think is the best energy acceleration.
Yeah.
And this is something to add to the equation.
So I think the other good thing about it is that it fits in well with Nitro Tank GX. I think just being able to get all the energy out of your deck, to use Turtonator or whatever, discard the energy, and then you can get it back with Nitro Tank and get a lot of value out of it. So I know a lot of times I don't always get the max value with Nitro Tank whenever I'm playing Volcanion, so usually for 2-3 energy, because you need a turn in which you would be optimal to use Nitro Tank. So this could work well with that. But overall, I think it's a good card for Volcanion because you're not really like trying to bridge it or anything on the first turn like a lot of other decks. So Kiawe doesn't really hurt you that much. So I think and Power Heater, you're mostly trying to Power Heater so that yes, you like the damage, but you're also trying to accelerate the energy. So you don't really care too much if you miss a turn of Power Heater, or if it means that you're going to be able to follow up with Turtonator on the next turn. So I think it's a really good card for Volcanion, but has to be played on the first turn really to have max effect. Okay, so Lana.
Lana, just play Rough Seas instead. Look, it could be like an alright one-off in Waterbox decks, so you're getting healing from Rough Seas, but when you add that to Lana, you might be able to heal a few Pokemon with it. So it could be a bit like a better Pokemon Center Lady. If you've got 2 damaged Laprases, you can heal 50 from both, and maybe it's a one-off, probably not. But it's certainly not going to be as good as Rough Seas once Rough Seas rotates. That's for sure.
Whoa, Mount Lana Killer.
So this is kind of like Lana. Team Aqua's
Secret Base.
Hidden Hideout?
Secret Base.
It was Secret Base.
Team Aqua Secret Base.
I know it was Team Magma Secret Base, but I'm not sure if it was also Team Aqua Secret Base.
I think it was, wasn't it?
Hidden Base.
Hidden Base.
Yes. Anyway, it's like that, but unfortunately it's only for basic Pokemon, so there aren't too many strategies in the format, I think, that actually make use of, aside from if you want to play your Wobbuffet deck. I don't think there are many decks in the format that really make use out of this anymore. We did see some Team Aquas being played in Seismitoad Giratina, because they didn't really have another stadium, and they could lock things in the active spot that they might not have otherwise been able to. But of course, the problem is this only works on basics, and now we have a format where we have a bunch of field blowers and a decent amount of counter stadiums. So I'm not hugely optimistic about this being played much.
Nope.
Yeah.
All right. Olivia, search your deck for 2 GX Pokemon, reveal them, put them into your hand. A decent effect. I'm not sure it's that strong at the moment. Maybe in the future once the format slows down a little bit.
No, I'm not a fan of this because the thing is that the only way you're going to get value out of this is searching evolutions, because obviously if they were basic Pokemon, you'd rather just bridge it for them. Unless I suppose they have the coming into play abilities, I guess. But it's just, okay, so you can grab but if you're playing an evolution deck with GXs, the only things that are GXs are the evolutions, so then you can't get the basics right. So say you're playing Gardevoir. Okay, literally all this can do is search for 2 Gardevoir. Is that worth playing as a supporter? I suspect that it isn't. Look, maybe once Teammates rotates, kind of has a niche usage, but again, without Versus Seeker, I think these kind of one-off supporters, I don't think it's going to be that great.
Alright.
Plumeria, interesting actually. Unfortunately, we don't have something like Execute where you could just abuse this by discarding Executes, like an Expanded, for instance. Because this is something that actually Sylveon would love. Because part of the problem with Sylveon is that it struggles to discard energy off the bench. Because your opponent, it's very good at discarding off the active because you've got Flare Grunts and Hammers. But discarding off the bench, people can kind of pile energy on the bench, and sure, you can use your GX attack, but you're not actually discarding the energy, so it's not that effective. This could give those decks sort of an avenue of being able to run your opponent out of energy. It's also just more energy discarding trainers, you've literally just got more of them. But discarding 2 cards from your hand is really costly. To do that over and over again, which is kind of what you need to do to make this abusable. I think in Standard, where you don't have some way of refilling, Executes. I can't think of another example, but I don't think there's an easy way of playing this. It could be just a one-off, but not in Sylveon, but maybe in Sylveon as well, but in other stuff. But so discarding 2 cards is kind of a tough ask.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, an interesting effect and something we haven't seen before really. This is quite a unique card in that respect.
Yeah, so, there's a lot of unique cards in the set actually.
So pretty cool, but yeah, not sure how viable it is. Po-Town. When you evolve one of your Pokemon, put 3 damage counters on it. So things like Drampa can abuse this for Berserk. They'll keep it going once Team Magma's Secret Base rotates. Can you think of any other nice uses for this?
Well, I think it's also just good as an aggressive stadium. I mean, I think even against stuff like Metagross, for decks that struggle to want to KO it, even that's a way that Darkrai, knocks out some of these big Stage 2 Pokemon. I mean, because the only way they have of really getting rid of this is Field Blower, and if they can't draw into that, and say if they're forced to go Metang and Metagross, they're taking 6 damage counters, or even just for red counting Metagross, 3 damage counters is still quite significant. So I think as an aggressive card, it could just strictly as an aggressive card for getting Drampa. I think this could see play, even now or after the rotation. But yeah, it's also good with Drampa. So yeah, once Team Magma's Secret Base rotates, you could play this instead. I've heard some people think that actually this might even be better than Team Magma's Secret Base for some versions of Drampa, possibly. Maybe for the Garbodor version, maybe it's actually easier to make use out of this than it is for Secret Base. And again, also you get that aggressive effect. So against those evolution decks, you're getting more of a benefit than Secret Base would. So yeah, I think this is a really cool card, and I really like the artwork as well. I think it's got a really nice aesthetic. If you want to have a look, but I think it's nice.
Nice.
But yeah, a good card for sure.
Alright, Rotom Dex Pokefinder mode. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. Put them back in any order. So we've seen many versions, iterations of this kind of effect in the trading card game. Many Pokédex have come and gone, and none of them have really seen that much play. Can you see this being anything special?
The only thing is if there's like a specific card that says, oh, look at the top card of your deck, and if it's an energy, search for it and attach it. Like, it would have to be something specific like that. So as a general card, obviously it's rubbish. Like, it's terrible. But there could be like certain abilities or certain attacks that specifically look at like the top 1 or top 2 cards of your deck. And maybe then this becomes like actually somewhat okay. But that's not much more to say than that.
Yeah, okay. Sophocles, this is Felicity's drawing, is it not?
It's worse than Felicity's drawing. Felicity's drawing, you had the option, I think. So Felicity's drawing, you could also choose to discard 1 and draw 3. Having to discard 2 cards is not great. I don't like this too much. Maybe decks that like discarding, there actually aren't too many of them right now, but some decks that either don't mind or actually prefer to discard cards, particularly once we see Versus Seeker rotate, and so you can't like play 8 Sycamores in a game, right? So you might have to look for other avenues to discard cards from your hand. This could be an alternative. I mean, drawing 4 cards isn't bad, so
no, it's not bad.
It could see some niche play, but it's not a fantastic supporter in and of itself.
No, I guess I can't really think of anything. Maybe Darkrai GX might like it for discarding Darkrai's or energy, but 4 cards at the moment is just a little bit subpar. When you can just Sycamore or N and draw a fresh hand while preserving your resources. So Sophocles. Interestingly, I like the full art a lot of this card, but we'll get to that. Super Scoop Up getting a reprint. Super Scoop Up, it's been out of the format for a little while. We're wondering when it was going to come back, and here it is. It's in Burning Shadows. So this is always an interesting card and always finds its way into certain decks. And Tapu Koko, as you mentioned earlier, really likes this kind of effect, so it can reuse its ability. But can you see any other decks which might want to abuse this?
Yeah, I'm just thinking. I mean, a lot of the coming into play sort of effects, you'd rather just use Devolution Spray. I could see. Gliscopod. Gliscopod could use this.
Yes.
Because it's sort of a switching and a healing card all in one. Yep. So I think you could see this played a bit, and also the ability to reach Tapu Lele as well could be a nice. Well, and Shaman also as well. For the format right now, this could definitely see play. I could see this being played in Gliscopod and other stuff as well. Yeah, it's just a nice card to have in the format. It's sort of weird not having it because it's like, I could put Super Scoop Up in this deck, and you think, wait, hang on a minute, it's actually not in the format. It's been in the format for ages, but not currently right now. But it's back, so it's good to see it back.
Tormenting Spray. This is quite a bad card.
Hey, I actually just quickly, quite seriously, I think post-rotation, once we lose Versus Seeker, Sylveon will have the ability to red card Delinquent and Tormenting Spray in the one turn. I think that's something that's actually overlooked, but that's a legitimate strategy. So, because of course Sylveon, you can search your deck for 83 cards, so it's not difficult for you to get this combo. You can your red card, and sometimes you might not even need to use red card because your opponent will just naturally have 4 of those cards in their hand. And then Delinquent, which you can get from your deck, obviously, and then Tormenting Spray, the last card if it happens to be a supporter. And again, because without Versus Seeker, so while Versus Seeker in the format, this is terrible because your opponent's 4 cards just had to have a Versus Seeker in it, and then you can't Tormenting Spray a Versus Seeker because your opponent could choose to keep it off the Delinquent. Once Versus Seeker leaves the format, there's no way of really getting around that play. So your opponent's basically on top deck mode, which is actually pretty strong. I think one thing that sort of notionally beats it is Oranguru, but theoretically with on a Silence rotating, damn it. Alright, we need to play like Alolan Muck or something. But anyway, look, in all seriousness, that's a legitimate combo. Putting your opponent down to 0 cards is extremely strong.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's something necessarily to scoff at. I think right now it's not very good at all. But with Sylveon, the ability to just get what would otherwise be an extremely difficult combo to get off, like that's just okay, you've got to get the Stadium, you've got to get Delinquent, you've got to get a red card, you've got to get Tormenting Spray. But when you can tutor your deck for 3 of any cards you want every single turn, it's not difficult to do that to your opponent. And when your opponent has no cards in their hand, so I think post rotation, you're not going to be able to Ultra Ball for Tapu Lele. So like your outs, when you have no Versus Seeker, your outs are severely diminished. So I think that could be like a legitimate strategy. Once the format has rotated. But,
so you heard it here first. Sylveon making a comeback.
Yeah. Post rotation.
Post rotation.
Don't know right now. Yeah. But no, seriously, I think that's a legit thing.
Weakness policy.
Yeah, good old weakness policy.
Yep. I think, don't need to say anything more about that.
I think Wick is just a worse version of Delinquent. The only reason you would play it is if your deck doesn't play a Stadium. Because the idea is you want to abuse your opponent having a low hand size, obviously. But like, so your opponent would finish their turn and they probably have a supporter in their hand or a Versus Seeker or some way of getting it. So they otherwise wouldn't be an issue. But if you give your opponent like a random, 2 or 3 or 1 card possibly, obviously you're probably going to screw them over. But of course Delinquent's generally better than that. So ideally you want to play Delinquent instead. But of course if you don't have a Stadium, maybe Wick actually has some usage instead as a disruptive card in that sense. So I actually don't think it's terrible. I mean, the problem is that it probably would be better if you didn't have to do it to yourself, actually. But I don't know. Maybe it's like a one-off. It's not great, but it has some uses.
Yeah, it's a strange card in that in certain situations it could be great, but in other situations you can help your opponent quite a lot. And the effect is not really reliable, I don't think, like especially post rotation. Once as you say, you lose VS Seeker and things, would you be able to play this on the turn that you need it, etc.? Yeah. And it's just a worse version of N, I think.
I don't think it's really... People are comparing it to N. I think it's more of a Delinquent type of card. I suppose you could play it as sort of... because as a general draw supporter, it's not good. Shuffling the amount of cards in your hand and drawing that many cards is just not good. That's a bad effect. The reason you use it is disruptive, but it's not like N. It's more like Delinquent in that it punishes your opponent for having a small amount of cards in their hand, which is the opposite of N. N punishes your opponent for having a lot of cards in their hand. It's a totally opposite card to N. I think people are making the wrong impression when they compare it to N. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I know what you mean. It sort of feels spiritually similar in the sense that both players are shuffling their hands into their deck sort of thing. But ultimately, the way you play it is more like Delinquent. The idea is you want to savage your opponent on an opportune turn when they have only a few cards in their hand. Because imagine just on the first turn, let's just say you play almost all of your cards out. When you'd otherwise be fine, because the last 2 cards in your hand is like a supporter and an energy.
Yeah,
and then you get whipped. And now you've just got random 2 cards, which is terrible. Again, of course, but Delinquent ideally would be better than that. But you need a Stadium, so I think it would be used more for that. The disruption rather than like... Because it's not a good draw card on your end. Shuffling and drawing the same amounts is not good. Particularly because it wouldn't include this card. So like, let's say you have 6 cards in your hand, you're shuffling and drawing 5. And like, most times you wouldn't even have 6 cards in your hand, so... I don't know, I think it's more of a Delinquent type disruption card, but...
Okay, true. But you would be restricting yourself as well, I guess.
Exactly,
Usually you'd want to play out your hand and then play your supporter.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem with it, Yeah.
Okay. Alright, Whoosh Baton. Cool if it ever comes off. That's a great effect if it ever comes off.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's a question for me. Will it ever come off when Field Blow and everything's in the format?
Yeah, Field Blow is a tough one. I think well, it's got to, for starters, you have to have exactly the right deck that's going to make use out of multiple basic energy. And because the problem is, like, if you're going to build a deck that makes use of multiple basic energy, it probably requires multiple basic energy to attack. Wishful Baton is nice, but you can't rely on it. Yeah. So it's sort of not really a card that is fitted to decks that sort of, it doesn't have to work, but it's nice if it does. Like, it would sort of be for a deck that needs, like, 3 energy to attack, but you can't rely on it. So it's sort of an awkward card, but it could definitely pop up at some point. It's sort of like an EXP share type card.
So that's pretty much it. The only thing that we're looking at is some ultra rares.
Yeah, some ultra rares. Tapu Bulu is being reprinted as reprinted, I guess, as a card actually in a set. So, because of course Tapu Bulu is promo currently.
So that's nice. Easier to get those. You think Bulu Vikavolt will stick around?
That's a good question. Do you mean post-rotation? Or like post the set being released? Or
probably post, or even... I don't think Burning Shadows change that much? Gardevoir probably
discarding all your energy could actually be pretty good against Gardevoir. But then again, you can't really one-shot Gardevoir, so I think that's probably a bigger issue for you. I'm not sure how it would actually... I'm not sure how it fares in the metagame. Well, I think the problem is Metagross does a number on it, and Metagross counters Gardevoir. I don't think it's going to be particularly well placed, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with it.
Alright, and Salazzle, Buffini, Machamp, Lycanroc gets a reprint. This is the promo Lycanroc from the Lycanroc.
That's right, yeah. So that's going to be staying in the format. Well, it was going to be staying in the format for a while anyway, but even longer.
It's just an easier way to get it, I guess. It's
exactly.
Set. I don't really want to go out and spend $50 to get a Lycanroc or pay for shipping.
More ways of getting cards is always good.
Alright, so that's pretty much it. I think that wraps it up. We've got a lot of ultra rares in this set.
And we do. That's the thing with this recent sets. They do not skimp on the ultra rares. That's
they certainly don't. They make it impossible to collect the set, considering you're getting a secret rare every 2 boxes or 3 boxes.
Whatever, Golden Choice Band. That is going to be one expensive card.
Yep.
Wow. And Golden and Rescue Shelter as well.
And Golden Multi-Switch. If there was a trainer that I really wanted in Secret Rare, it was Multi-Switch.
Actually, Golden Super Scoop Up as well.
Yeah.
Wow, they've gone nuts with this. And
the
we've
Fairy
got some more
energy
as well.
to top it off. Fairy Dark. Those are always popular types. So even Fire is big right now. So
there's a lot to collect in this set.
Horrible. Horrible for any collectors wanting to collect the set. I'm glad I gave that up a while back, because this is just unfathomable, the amount of ultra rares in this set.
Wait, aren't we a collecting channel? Isn't that what we do?
Huh?
Aren't we a collecting channel? Isn't that?
Yes. We evaluate prices of collections.
That's coming soon. But
Alright, cool. So Roland, any final thoughts?
So I think what we've seen here is that, I think particularly with Gardevoir, but even with things like Necrozma, we're going to see the format change. There's going to be a few new decks really coming into the format. Probably not going to be as format defining as Guardians Rising, I don't think. But definitely something that's going to affect the format, particularly post-rotation. But even right now, I think that the Gardevoir archetype is looking pretty strong at the moment.
Absolutely. Alright, so that pretty much wraps it up from us. So hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you got some valuable insights, some unique insights possibly from our set review. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We will be back with some gameplay videos from some events around Australia, possibly soon. I know there's a League Cup coming up in Bendigo on 23rd of August, so not sure if we're recording or streaming that. We may be streaming that, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.
And stop recording now.